This is Artemis Mission Control here in Houston, Texas. Now joining me on console, I have Dr. Brian Crucian. He is the principal investigator for Artemis II's Immune Biomarkers study. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about your role during this mission?
I'm the principal investigator for the Immunology Biomarkers study, but it has a large team of co-investigators both in NASA and external and globally, actually. And we're very excited to get biosamples down from the Artemis II crew and be able to say some things about how we're physiologically adapting to deep space.
All right, so the scientific usefulness of saliva is something that most of us here on Earth usually don't think about. So how are you collecting those samples?
We're collecting both blood and saliva samples. The name of the study is Biomarkers, and so biomarkers are measurable indicators of pathological processes or normal physiological adaptation. And so you go to the doctor, you go out for a blood test or any type of similar test, and we're basically doing the same thing. We're the reference laboratory, medical reference laboratory for the astronauts. And so we want to get these samples down, pre-flight samples, in-flight samples, post-flight samples, and it will tell us about how they're adapting to the spaceflight environment. We don't have a lot of the laboratory equipment that we have on station, unfortunately. It's a different type of vehicle. And so we had to do things a little bit differently. On ISS, we can collect venous blood samples, and they can be partially processed on board, frozen and stabilized for return. We first thought we wouldn't be able to get in-flight samples from the initial Artemis missions, but then we had some innovation happen at NASA, and we decided to expand some dry collection technology to enable this to happen, and it's worked really well. We're very excited about it.
All right, show off this dry collection book for the camera. So how does this work?
This is the magic that makes it all happen. And so the crew member will, I only have one hand, let me change hands here with the microphone button. And so basically the crew members expose these pages and put it in their mouth, get it wet, and then let the pages air dry. And literally, this is it. It can go in the pocket, it can go in a bag, it can come down. And the analytes that we look at are very stable on this media for incredibly long lengths of time. We did this on board ISS for cortisol only. I'll show a quick picture of that. This is a collection on board ISS, dry saliva. It was actually pioneered by a man named Dr. Mark Laudenschlager, and but we were only doing cortisol because liquid samples are better than dry samples. And so the reason we needed the book for cortisol was we needed multiple samples in a day for circadian rhythm. And so we thought for Artemis missions, this might be the solution. And so we've pioneered basically trying to do everything else that one might need to look at in astronauts off of these books. Stress hormones, markers of inflammation, latent virus DNA, and bit by bit, by changing the papers, the reconstitution methods, it all worked. And so this is it. They'll do these books before flight, during flight, after flight. We've seen them in some of the live shots from Artemis II on the walls of the cabin drying, so it's been really cool. We got all excited about that. And we can't wait to get the samples down and be able to say something about how we're adapting to deep space.
That's super interesting, and actually every day or on several days on the crew's timeline, we actually see a reminder right before their sleep period to collect their saliva sample. So it's interesting now to know exactly what that was for, but let's dig a little bit more into this. So can viruses reactivate in space?
Yeah, you heard me mention latent virus DNA, and I've been here for about 25 years, and it's been an interesting arc of discovery, medically speaking. I'm an immunologist, we went from not knowing if we had an immunology problem during space flight to getting some post-flight samples from shuttle missions and realizing, wow, there's tremendous changes there, but is it just landing? We had to wait for the next study to get in-flight samples to know that, yeah, we've actually got an in-flight issue here with the immune system. And so Station allowed us to characterize this over 6 months. But what we've done is try to connect the immune problem to the virus problem. And so everybody became an immunologist during COVID. We've all heard about CD4 T cells and antiviral immunity, but this is what's going on with the astronauts and the clinical risks that we're worried about. When their immune system becomes compromised, latent viruses may reactivate and cause risks during deep space missions. And these are the viruses. When you get a cold, someone gets you on an elevator, your kid's from daycare, about a week later, that cold virus is completely gone from your body. You're then immune to that cold virus, and you generally won't get that one again. The problem is there's hundreds and hundreds of cold viruses. But some of these special viruses establish what we call latency in the body. You don't clear them. They're with you for the rest of your life. A good example is chickenpox. We get that when we're young. The virus is called varicella zoster. And you don't clear that virus. It establishes latency. And every day of your life, that virus is trying to wake up and cause disease. And your cytotoxic T cells, not to get too jargony, but that's what controls the virus. So during space, if your cytotoxic T cells aren't working as well, the virus is going to wake up. It was actually NASA that pioneered finding that these viruses can be detected in saliva of stressed individuals who aren't really sick yet. It's the changes that precede disease that are associated with the stress. It was Dr. Dwayne Pearson, Dr. Satish Mehta, and so it was fascinating, but we didn't associate that with clinical illness yet in astronauts, but it was a great biomarker for clinically relevant immune problems. Later on station, we started to connect it to issues the crew were having, some of the crew, dermatitis events. We actually had a case of zoster on orbit, shingles. That's the disease that is recreated by the same virus that caused chickenpox when you're either tremendously stressed or elderly. And so we actually had that happen on station once.
So you mentioned a little bit about reactivation of viruses, but what specific spaceflight hazards can contribute to that reactivation?
Oh, that's a great question, and there are so many. And so stress, physiological and psychological stress, anybody who's experienced a period of tremendous stress in their life, that's when you get your colds, that's when you get sick. Med students taking exams, bereavement. There are a lot of situations on the ground where we get stressed and we get sick. But also microgravity, just being weightless, the immune system doesn't function as well. It fascinates me to this day. If we were on station right now, we could do some somersaults and throw some M&Ms at each other, and it looks great. But in fact, the cells know something's wrong and don't function as well. And so several of the immune cells, also natural killer cells, control cancer. They don't work as well during spaceflight. Some of Dr. Richard Simpson's work. And so these are the immune changes that persist during flight. And it's a stress, to answer your question, stress, microgravity, radiation. The most radiosensitive cells in the body are the immune precursors in the bone marrow. And so altered nutrition, isolation, confinement, all of these things. So space is what we call an applied experiment. It's not just one variable, but it's a whole bunch. If we were doing this in laboratory, I'd want to look at one thing at a time. But during space, we're really just characterizing what is space flight, which is the amalgamation of all these variables.
So it's a combination of a lot of different things, but looking forward, how will insights from your study benefit future missions to the moon and also onto Mars?
Well, once we collect, and I say we, it's the global spaceflight immunology community, characterized this, and once we saw some adverse clinical events in some of the astronauts that we thought were related to it, we moved on to countermeasures. And so we've already been developing the countermeasure protocol to try and fix this. Now, the happy part of the story is that on station, we've kind of already fixed this problem. They've already deployed a whole bunch of countermeasures to station. The improved aerobic and resistive exercise devices, improved nutrition, communications, and all of these things have benefited stress and they've benefited immune, in particular exercise. But most of these countermeasures don't translate well to deep space missions. So we're going to increase the stressors and probably to some degree decrease our ability to care for them halfway to Mars. So we need a countermeasure that's specific for deep space missions. And so we've already developed that international team of experts and clinicians. And so that's being tested on the ground right now. And to look for a test bed, we look for a place terrestrially that recreates that spaceflight stressor. And the best place ended up being Antarctica. Wintering over there, which is a 1-year mission, 24-hour darkness, isolation, extreme environment, is the perfect place to test these immune countermeasures for flight. And so that's happening right now with the National Science Foundation at Palmer Station. And we're excited to get those samples back and see if the countermeasure we've developed for this problem is working.
That is super interesting, and I know there's lots of different analogs for all sorts of different human spaceflight things going on. We also have the CHAPEA and Hera and all sorts of things that are often going on. But what are you personally most excited to learn from this mission and this study?
I'm excited, after 30 years here, that we're beyond the Van Allen belt. I mean, I can hardly believe it. I'm so excited. And so everybody on our team is. We're excited that a way emerged to get these samples and to characterize deep space stressors.
Go ahead.
Jeremy just completed his aerobic. Please let me know when the vehicle dynamics support me getting on for resistive.
And Reed, we just went around the room.
Oh.
We are all good. You can begin exercise now if you'd like.
Okay, we will. It is pretty interesting up here. I'm sure you see in the data, but we can definitely feel the vehicle moving around when